Hi everybody. So we're going to be talking about Chapter 4, The Rise of City-States. So in Chapter 4 we had 4 different problems. Problem number 1. Problem number 1 was food shortages. Food shortages in the foothills. So the foothills, that's just another word for mountains. Foothills, it's just another word for mountains. So we had food shortages in the foothills. How did they solve that? Right? There were too many people for the small area in the foothills that they had to farm. There wasn't enough farmland for all the people that they had to feed. So, their solution, they decided, hey, you know what? There's not enough land here, we're just going to move. They moved to the plains. Plains is another word for flat land. So, the foothills and the mountains, those are very up and down. The plains, they're very flat. They're just flat. So they didn't have enough food in the foothills, so they moved to the plains. Moving to the plains, it brought its own issues. That brings us to problem number 2. And that was the plains had too little water or too much water. So these plains that they moved to, we call that area Sumer. In Chapter 5, we go over different characteristics of civilization, and we talk a little bit more about ancient Sumer. For right now, just know that these ancient Mesopotamians moved to the plains. They moved to the plains. In the plains, it had too little water. Most of the time, it didn't rain very much on the plains. Remember, this is in ancient Mesopotamia. So this is in modern-day Iraq. Not too much water. However, sometimes there are floods. There's too much water. Snow melts, goes down these mountains, and into the plains. So, into the plains with a lot of water. So that snow melts, and it turns into floods. So, what do you do then? What do you do to solve that problem? Well, solution number 2. You find a way to control the water, right? So you build irrigation systems. Irrigation systems. Irrigation, that's just another word for controlling the water. So some examples are levees. Levees are these big barriers that they build on the sides of the river, on the banks. And they do that so that the rivers don't flood. So they build up the sides really high so that the river or whatever water source you're getting your water from doesn't flood over. So levees, those are big barriers that are built up on the side of the rivers. We also have canals. Canals are like little pipes or a channel that goes down into the ground. They dig it out, they fill it with water, and suddenly you have these almost like little streams that bring the water to your village. So if you have a river that's very far away, you could potentially build a canal to bring that water to your village, to your city-state. And the last thing that they really used were dams. Dams, that's when you control the water by stopping a river from going up or downstream. And you can decide when you want the water to go and when you want it to stop. However, building these irrigation systems, they came, again, with their own problem. Problem number 3. Well, when you build these systems, can only one person do this? No, many people have to work to build these irrigation systems. So, their problem was building and maintaining. Maintaining is another word for keeping up on something, making sure that it's all running properly. So building and maintaining the irrigation systems. These irrigation systems were incredibly important for controlling the water. When you control the water, you begin to control the food supply. So that's a lot of what all of this is about, is making sure that we have enough food to feed our people. So in order to have that, you need to be able to control the water. You need to be able to control the water. So building and maintaining these irrigation systems that was a little hard for people. Right? You can't do that all on your own. So what do you have to do? What's the solution? They had to work together. They had to work together. So they worked together not only to build these, but also to keep them up, to maintain them. Every once in a while, the canals, they would get clogged with this silt, these fine particles of rock, and it would make it so that the water couldn't get to where it needed to go. So they needed to maintain these systems to get the silt out of the canals and have their good water for farming. Working together, again, leads to its own problem. Each problem has its own solution. And the solutions usually end up leading to more problems. However, their problem was they were fighting over water rights. Everybody wanted to have control over the water. However, when you're all trying to work together, sometimes agreeing on things can be pretty hard, especially when you need those things to survive. So if it's between you and the next city, you're probably going to want your city to be the one that survives. You and your family want to survive, right? So they ended up fighting over water rights. To solve that problem, our solution was they built moats. Moats are big, they're kind of like canals. They're these big bodies of water that are carved out of the land by people. So we go and we have our, let's say this is our city. We'll build something around it. This would all be water. So they'd build this canal around their town. They call this a moat. They build it around there, and then they'll have a bridge usually coming out here so that they can let people in and out. But when someone's invading, they can bring that bridge up And then it's really hard to get over the moat and into the city because you have to go over water. Not only that, but they built moats and walls and fences. So not only did you have to get past the moat, you also had to get past these big fences and walls that they built around the city as well. So there were many problems and solutions in ancient Mesopotamia. These are just a few. So get these down. I would read through chapter 4 just to make sure that you get any extra information that you might need. However, this is a general overview of the chapter.